What is up, everybody? It's Isaac Punts here, and today we're going to talk about somebody that is just popping off. Okay, the name is Matt Araiza. If you're not familiar with this guy, learn that name. Go ahead, learn it. Get used to it. Say it over and over again because you are about to be hearing about this guy a lot. Okay, Araiza is a punter and a kicker at San Diego State University. For those who don't know anything about him, well, at the young age of 3, he actually had his left leg removed and replaced with the FGM 147 javelin missile launcher. Okay, this procedure was wildly successful and allows him to do things with a football that make even the most seasoned astronauts just a little jealous as he launches footballs consistently into orbit every single day, and especially so on weekends. For those who are familiar with my channel, you may have noticed I said something after the word punter, which you're not familiar with, which is the word kicker. And yes, he does kick. So kicking is pretty much when the ball's on the ground and you try to kick it through some uprights. I don't know, it doesn't really spiral, so I'm not too particularly interested in it, and I don't really know much about it, but he does that as well as punting, but we'll get back to that later. So for now, let's just stick to Matt Araiza's punting. So you may be wondering, really, what got my attention about Mr. Araiza? Well, it first started, so I was looking through stats and noticed that sitting proudly at the top of the stat board was Matt, averaging over 55 yards per punt across the first 3 weeks. Then I saw that he had a couple punts over 60 yards when I watched his tape, but 3 over 70 against New Mexico State, and it just keeps getting better. Every time I watch his tape, it gets better. His tempo, his drop, his consistency, swing path. Dude could not only crush footballs, but he did it routinely and, quite frankly, makes it look really easy. Currently, Matt still holds the highest punting average in the country at 51.95 yards per punt, and the third highest net punt in the country, which is, I'm sure, not being helped by the fact that he has a nice tendency to kick balls out the back of the end zone from a far distance away, so that is definitely playing into his punting net average. And he's currently on track to have the highest punting average of all time if he can maintain that average. So after watching the season continue to unfold, I'm finally going to say it. Matt Araiza may just be the best college punter of all time, and here is why. First, Matt is consistent from game to game, punt to punt. He's going to hit a good ball. After watching almost all of his tape, every time he's in open field, he's likely going to be able to uncork an absolute nuke and change the field position in his team's favor. This is made easier by his drop being so consistent. It's always where it needs to be. He catches it and places it, and it just doesn't move. He has seemingly eliminated all of his major mishits and shanks with just how consistent his drop and his swing is, which means we don't see 20-yard punts. We don't see really that many sub 40-yard punts. He's always able to put his leg into it, and when he needs to, he is also able to show off some major directional prowess, although he does send most of his nukes straight down the middle of the field. The only downside to his punting game is that, like I had previously mentioned, on occasion he gets too much of the ball, which has resulted in 10 touchbacks across 56 attempts, which, yes, is quite a lot, but when you're routinely hitting balls 70 plus yards, it's likely that many of those will roll into the end zone. Some people also have seen some complaints about his punts not having the hang as you would want, but contrary to popular belief, when you're hitting punts 60 plus yards, you don't actually want more hang. Arguably, you want a little bit less hang. Because what this does is it forces the returners to catch the ball over their shoulder while they're moving backwards. Okay, so this is going to give your coverage more time to collapse as that returner has to catch the ball, stop his feet, turn around, and then choose a direction. Okay, extra hang sometimes will give that returner enough time to really get beneath the ball and then dart as soon as he catches it. And let's just face it, guys, there's not enough hang time in the world to let your coverage unit really collapse on a 75-yard punt. When he catches it, I mean, it's going to take them at least 6 to 7, almost 8 seconds to get down there. So I see his hang ratio really working in his benefit. Okay, the second thing that I think sets him apart is he isn't just a punter, and he's not just a kicker. I've described Matt as an apex predator. And if you want to know why I feel this way, you have to watch his tape versus Utah. So he's averaging 51 yards per punt, and Araiza makes 3 tackles on arguably one of the best returners in the nation, definitely one of the best returners in the conference. And now, while this might kind of speak to our previous problem of not getting the hang time that he needs, what this should really show you is that he's just an absolute animal on the field. It doesn't matter if he gets the hang. He runs down and he smacks people. I mean, and he's absolutely hitting them. He's making great form tackles and he's lowering his shoulder. He does it all. Okay, the third part that I really like about Matt is that while he's doing the rest of all of these like impressive things, he also has to split his attention between punting, kickoffs, field goals, and PATs. Now, while it's relatively common that punters do kickoffs, usually the addition of field goals into the mix will decrease their consistency a good bit. The next best punter in the nation that does all 3 is Jordan Stout for Penn State, averaging a little over 46 yards per punt. And even Jordan Stout doesn't do PATs like Matt Araiza does. And Araiza doesn't just kick field goals, guys. He excels at hitting them. He's hit a plethora from 50, plus a lot of his misses have been from that 55 range. And he has had some close range misses, but still what he is able to do on the field goal unit is more than enough to boost his team in the kicking game from what he can do. So with all of that in mind, like, why do I think Matt Araiza is the best punter to have played in college? Okay, so first we have to look at some of the previous Ray Guy Award winners. Okay, and the current holder of the longest season average in college football history is Braden Mann, who won the Ray Guy Award in 2019 and is now playing for the Jets. Okay, so in 2019 when he won, he had an impressive 51-yard average per punt for the Texas A&M Aggies. But he also had the luxury to just punt and kick, which, don't get me wrong, is still impressive on his own. But really what stands out about Matt Araiza isn't necessarily the average, because he's had to kick a lot of short field punts that have brought it down. But Matt's top end has been insane. And quite frankly, Braden Mann's impressive season has nothing on the top end like Matt's does. So Matt had consistently puts up 70-yard punts. He had 3 in 1 game against New Mexico State Aggies. He had back-to-back 80-yard punts. Just last week against Hawaii, he uncorked a 79-yard punt, and he's hit so many 60-yard punts that I think he's catching up to as many 60-yard punts in one season that I hit 50 yards in my best season as a collegiate punter. So if we look at the one game that stands out in a negative, I'll put some air quotes around negative, a negative light around Matt Araiza's career, and that is his game where he just averages a little over 38 yards per punt. So when you go and take a look at that game, I couldn't find any film, but when you read through the stats, most of his punts were kicked from about the 50 to the 40-yard line on the opposite side of the field. So he had to take some off so he could never really open up his leg, because that's a game he plays too. He was able to put some 14 on the 8, a lot inside the 20, ended up hitting a 47-yard touchback. So he just was working with a really short field. But given the room, I think Matt could easily be averaging 60+ yards per punt every game. And if you disagree with me, then just take a look at Townsend, where he had nothing but open field and uncorked a 65-yard average. So that is why I think Matt is probably the best college punter we have ever seen. If you disagree with me, talk about it down in the comment. But if not, I really thank you guys for watching. As always, I hope you're having a great day, and peace.
Araiza is maybe the best punter in the country, and he gets into this one. This is an absolute huge punt. Wow. It lands at the 18. It rolls to the 14. Down to the 12. My goodness.
But again, the Spartans were on top of it.
Now Araiza really hammers one. Lands at the 30. Rolls inside the 10. Down inside the 5.
Oh, I know who you're going to be for Halloween this year, Rich.